No Mongo! Remember, the customer is always right. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. Here in Pennsylvania, ooh, whoopee, a big fucking victory for Hillary Clinton. Everybody is all eyes on the margin of her victory, which right now is wavering between 8 and 10 points. A lot of people thinking a double-digit win for her is going to be needed. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen, as started out being a 10-point gap down to 8 now. But the dog and pony show will continue for a while longer. Maybe they'll make it all the way to the convention, and we'll have a nice show for everybody. We'll just all wink wink and pretend that the election's not already decided and the candidate to be has not already been chosen by the powers that be and the elites around the world. I also see in the news that our great friend and ally, the wonderful state of Israel, once again busted for spying on the United States. An engineer was arrested for providing secrets, including nuclear weapons information, to Israel back in the 1980s, as if this should be a shock to anybody. Jonathan Pollard is in prison for the very same thing, and this is something that happens quite a lot. Israel spies on the United States, probably more so than they spy on just about anybody but their immediate neighbors, who all want them eradicated. We're supposed to be their big friends, but they spend a great deal of their time spying on us. So I guess that's the way they treat their friends. Thanks a lot, Israel. This is people that we give a tremendous amount of aid to every year, over and over and over again. For what? For what? What better use can that money be put to? I ask you. It's a fucking joke. Continued support of Israel to the total detriment of every other nation in that region, and a total shambles of our foreign policy, is a place we cannot continue to go. And yet that's exactly where we are continuing to go. Hillary Clinton coming out big time on the side of the Zionists, in proclaiming her willingness to go to war with Iran at the behest of Israel. It's just the same old shit, warmed up again. So whoever ends up coming out as a Democratic candidate, whether it be Clinton or Obama, doesn't really make much fucking difference, because in the end it's going to be the same fucking bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. But the great news is for Ron Paul. Ron Paul has a big jump in PA, and I think this is indicative of the true state of things in this country, because even in a sham-controlled election, they can't totally discount all of the support that he has and that people in this country are showing for the constitutional message of Ron Paul, and a great desire of people to get back to what this country really stood for and go back to a real republic, which is what this country started out as, but it is definitely no longer in that same category. I'd like to touch briefly on a couple of issues, and one is that something that I've talked about before, and that is that the real issues that are going to be coming to the forefront, whenever there is struggle, whenever there is going to finally be an uprising of people in this country, around the world, it's not going to be over such issues as anything like, a banking collapse or you look back, even very desperate economic things are not going to be the cause of it. You look back at the Great Depression here in the United States, and you don't see massive upheaval. You don't see revolution. What you're actually going to see in the way of struggle in the future is when classism finally rears its head as the real driving force behind revolution around the country and around the world. And I think that two key issues are going to come to the forefront, which are going to bring this out to a great extent. And that is, well, commodities on one hand for sure, but to a lesser extent, I think, than food and water. And what we're seeing right now is a coming food crisis, a food production crisis in the world. It's getting a little bit of airtime in the mainstream media, but not as much as it deserves. The other thing is water resources. And giant corporations right now are buying up water resources around the world and forcing the people in third world countries to pay these giant multinational companies for their own water. And the fact that huge multinational corporations control a vast amount of the land that is in food production, and the fact that biofuels are diverting a lot of grain, particularly corn, into the production of fuel away from food production, we're facing a great catastrophe. And this is going to accelerate the class warfare which is going to be coming. I guarantee it. And the reason why is because these are the most fundamental things in the world. People can get by if they got to scrape by with a couple dollars, just like they did in the Great Depression. They still had something to eat. There was still food on the table. But when it comes down to it, the elites are going to be the ones who have all the food. They're going to be the ones who have all the water. And that's what's going to cause the people to finally rise up. The basic fundamental needs of human life, and that is food and water. And over the coming years, the dwindling of those resources, unless something is done to stop it, is going to be the impetus that is going to drive the coming class war. I guarantee it. It's not going to be anything in the general economy, and it's not going to be other commodities, even though they will produce ripples here and there, just like the economy will. But, mark my words, the dwindling resources of food and water will cause the coming class warfare. And class warfare is what's coming. All of us lowly shit kickers against a few elites, super rich, able to have whatever they want, no matter what it means, to the detriment of all of us lowlifes. Watch it. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time. This is where the coming struggle is going. And that is where it's going to end up. Thank you. Good night.